say something?
Yes, okay, absolutely. I'm going to ask Dayrell Oakley-Hill. His father worked in the Gendarmerie, which was in Albania before the war. There's a very important connection between Britain and Albania. So ask him to say a few words.
Thank you very much. Yes, my father, Dayrell Oakley-Hill, was approached to join King Zog's Albanian Gendarmerie under General Jocelyn Percy in 1929. And he was one of 8 officers, and they stayed until 1938, when the British had to leave, he was the only one to stay the whole time. The others changed after 2 or 3 years, and he became fluent, absolutely fell in love with the country, its people, its mountains, its landscape, and he kept a lot of cuttings. And I've got one here, which I think you might like to hear. It's a message from King Zog, and this is from 1935. And he was interviewed by a telegraph correspondent, Mr. Gedyi. King Zog of Albania received me in the royal palace here today and frankly discussed the future of his country. Speaking in fluent German, he recalled an earlier interview which I had with him in 1928 on occasion of his proclamation as king, supplanting the decrepit republic. Seated at his desk in his private apartments, King Zog readily answered all my questions. The keynote of all his answers may be summed up in this one phrase, and he regarded peasants as absolutely crucial to the land and the existence of the country, so it's not a derogatory term, I think. I intend to make the country a solid, simple peasant's home for peasant people. In answer to my question about the general economic situation of the country, resonances today, I think, here, he said, the financial crisis has hit us perhaps harder than any country in Europe. There is no magic solution. It can be cured only by rigid economy, and this step we have already taken. 2 years ago, our budget amounted to £426,600. This year to 246,000. Next April's budget, however, is only 200,000. When I asked the king to explain his plans for the country's future, he said, you may sum it up as roads, agricultural development and education of the right type. We have built many roads, but we need many more. There has been much talk about our strategic roads, but we have not built a single road for strategic purposes. Every one serves urgent agricultural and commercial needs. Every penny available will go towards the development of agriculture. We must remain what we are, a peasant state. Within 2 years, I intend that every Albanian shall own a plot of land. We do not need a big army in the future, and I'm putting recruits on land work. Next year, I'm starting a great program, adding 2 to the normal 4 classes in the elementary schools. In those, we will teach agriculture and trades exclusively. The full scheme will take 10 years to complete. I asked King Zog whether, in his view, Albanians' connections with Britain could be strengthened. He replied, nothing would be more welcome. We are not one of the countries that close their doors to foreign capital. All foreigners desiring to make money in Albania without ulterior political motives are heartily welcome. England has always been Albania's best friend in her struggles upwards. My 2 nieces, who are at school at Ascot, are just returning from Tirana. They spend all their holidays there. They are tremendously happy and will remain 4 years in their English school. For myself, one of my greatest desires is to find an opportunity to visit England. And as soon as I feel assured of my country's sound condition, it will be my first objective. Especially do I desire to see the Scottish Highlands, which I believe are a counterpart of the Albanian Highlands. You need to go a bit further north. Yeah. England never helped Albania more than by supplying her with splendid staff officers and inspectors for the Albanian Gendarmerie, headed by General Sir Jocelyn Percy. They have made our gendarmerie a magnificent force. I intend to retain these Englishmen without reduction in numbers indefinitely. They are splendid fellows. The king laughed heartily when I referred to rumours of his marriage plans. He pointed to a pile of papers on his desk and said, honestly, I have no time even to think of marriage. Perhaps later.
Yeah, hi, I'm David Oakley-Hill, and I'm the son of Dayrell Oakley-Hill, who wrote this book, An Englishman in Albania. My father was recruited in 1929 as a retired army officer who'd already fought in Mesopotamia before it was Iraq, against both the Turks and the Kurds in the 20s. He was now a retired army officer, and a chap called Joe Swire, whose daughter is part of this organisation, Albanians, dropped into his office and said apparently they're recruiting for the Albanian Gendarmerie. And so he went along and he was signed up, and lo and behold, he was in Albania from 1929 to 1938. He was the only British officer who stayed for that whole period. Most of them changed every couple of years, helping King Zog to make the place more fair and democratic. It seems, in retrospect, to have been a bit of a golden period, where Zog, although eccentric, seemed to exert a fairly benign hand on the country, and he wanted the best for it. And my father travelled the whole country on horseback. He helped sort out blood feuds. He set up an animal hospital, RSPCA kind of thing. He also translated the English football rules, and with a particularly enthusiastic Albanian who was involved in football, they set up a league, and he refereed this football league for 2 years all over in teams all over the country. He ended up being personal interpreter to King Zog for the last part of the last year. He was there, but then finally the British had to leave in '38, and only a few months later, of course, Zog himself had to make a dash for it after the Italians arrived. But it was obviously a life-changing experience. He fell in love with the country, its wonderful people, its wonderful mountains. He wrote poems about it.